Okay.
Thanks everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for the AI for Social Impact seminar and the AI Literacy series, the last one of the year. Thanks to the amazing Dr. Samantha Horseman, who's sitting there for organising these as part of the Ideas Lab, and the AI Hub, Advanced Queensland AI Hub as well. We'll just kick off with an acknowledgement of country, please. And I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, sea, air and energy of the place we're all in now, and for those online as well, place where you work, live and play, and also acknowledging that some people travel to be here, so your initial place of residence. And also to reaffirm our commitment to working with the traditional custodians, building on the foundation that some of the pioneers did to start establishing some of this work. And without further ado, hand over to Tomas.
Thank you. Okay, do you want to say something about this safety?
Oh, safety briefing, thank you. Yes, toilets are out there. And if anything happens, if there's a fire or anything like that, just follow Sam out there. There's your safety warning.
I'll pick up later.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Shane. Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. I think before we really start, I just want to ask Sam, are we able to listen to people online and here they can hear us well? Is there a good feedback?
So far, yes.
Yeah, okay, excellent. Great, because we have quite a few people online. We want to make sure that they can participate as well. So we have today a session for you where we'd like to present. First, I will present some stories, then Shane will present some stories, and then we have time for questions and answers and ideas to be shared. We're focusing on social impact. We've called this AI for Good. And about an hour from now, we have an extra workshop if any of you want to participate. We will go through how we use a online ChatGPT to help us create a grant quickly for asking for money for social impact projects. So with that, please allow us to share and get started, and keep your questions for the question and answer session. Then we can get through time today as planned. So we are talking about artificial intelligence. And just to set the stage, what we mean by that in the context of AI for Good is really a technology that allows computers to do complex tasks like recognizing images or understanding language structures, but also analyzing data and giving recommendations. I'm sure you all started using it more or less, and maybe you haven't, but this is really what we are talking about, artificial intelligence today. And we are looking at whether we can use this for good. And when we're talking about this, it makes sense for us to talk about it in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, which you hopefully all know by heart. Maybe not the 156 targets that are associated with it, but this is what the world is working towards to achieve by 2030. And as you can see, the goals for the Sustainable Development Goals include really getting rid of poverty, and goes all the way to, for example, focusing on climate action, etc., etc. So as we talk today, keep in the back of your mind that this is what we talk about when we say AI for Good. everything that we could and should be working towards is included in the Sustainable Development Goals. So these are some facts that we should also consider. There's 2 billion children in the world out of 8 billion people currently. But there's also 2 billion people who are financially excluded, meaning they can't even open a bank account. Because the reality is there's still 2.5 billion people who cannot access the internet. And therefore, when we're talking about using AI for good, we have to be talking about also how do we not forget the people who are not directly able to access the tools and services that we want to put in place. And also not forget that whether they like it or not, they are going to be impacted by the AI revolution that's happening at the moment, but they may not have the same voice in the process because they are excluded. So if we look at a very tangible, practical area of AI for good, we're sharing here some global trends in humanitarian assistance, the type of assistance we use to deal with emergencies and disasters, refugee settings, displacements, etc. So while we are trying to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, we are seeing that the needs of people around the world that need humanitarian assistance is really exploding from around 15 million people 6 years ago to above 40. Am I wrong here? I think I'm wrong, right? Yeah, 40 million people in this year. And at the same time, we're seeing that the budgets are really going down. This is globally. So what we're seeing is a need for enhancing our support for the people in the world who needs assistance the most, and at the same time, budgets going down. And I think it's worth just reflecting here that when we're talking about artificial intelligence for good, we are talking about artificial intelligence on a social scale. And one of the things we're talking about is how is this impacting us as humans? How is it impacting our work? I know a lot of people, probably including many in this room, including myself, worry about, is this going to take away my livelihood? And at the same time, as we can see, is it perhaps also a tool for us to do more with less? So I don't have the answer to that, but it's important for us to consider that AI may be something that will allow us to do something we've never been able to do in the past. So currently, what are we using AI for good in the world? Well, mostly, for example, people arrive to an emergency setting and they use ChatGPT to very quickly get an understanding of what's the context. The generative AI tools can give us a lot of synthesized data very quickly, which before would take us a long time to gather, and very often we wouldn't get it. Now we can get it within a minute or 5 if we really want to be precise. People in this space are using it to monitor trends, setting up dashboards, to monitor processes and impact. And then, of course, I don't know, but I started doing this almost, and now I speak French, I speak Spanish, I speak so many languages. I use it for translation, and it's not always perfect, but it's pretty good. which means also that if you arrive in a situation where you need to engage with people quickly, you now have a tool that can help you do this instantly. Knowledge management, and we'll get into what we mean by that, but people are using it increasingly to manage a large volume of knowledge. And our mini workshop today will show you also how it can be useful for managing knowledge for grant applications. So, as a facilitator today, I am the founder of a company with a mission to provide parenting support 24/7 on any topic to any caregiver, anywhere, anytime. And we are using the technology of AI to really advance this vision. And I'll go into a little bit what we are talking about here. But just to say that what we're talking about is using AI as a platform to start improving our work to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And why are we talking about parenting? Talking about parenting because it is the foundation for every action that anyone will have to take in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, them being only 6 years from now, we have to consider that there's been a lot of parenting going on in the past too, but now we can really accelerate it. So what is it we'd like to do with Parent Pilot, as we call our platform? It's really creating a one-stop platform that's easily accessible on any device. One that uses geolocation to gather information and advice and support that's relevant to who you are and where you are. Technology allows us to do that now, if we know where you are and if you've shared some basic data with us about who you are. We're talking about developing and training what we now know as a large language model. Developing so that it is really trained on trusted and vetted content. And I'll get into why this is so important. And then we're talking about this being a platform with an ethical marketplace for parenting services and products. Globally, the baby equipment and services alone is more than $27 billion a year. So we are thinking, how can we get some of these funds through the platform and start using them to distribute to people who actually need them to become better parents? So what we want is also to equip our platform with a digital wallet that allows users to be rewarded for their use. And we are looking into how can we use the technology known as blockchain that really will allow us to have content sharing and financial transactions that can be trusted. And allow me to elaborate why we're seeing it like this. We know that people, parents, do not necessarily practice anything new if they don't have the resources to do it. We've seen it again and again. The people behind Parent Pilot has worked with parenting globally for the last 30 years. And what we see is a lot of knowledge is being shared, but very little support for practice, including financial support. So what we'd like to do is combine knowledge about parenting, linked to services that are helpful for parenting, linked to a way to make an income that it will allow you to practice parenting to the best of your abilities. And by this, we are focusing not only on everyone, we are focusing especially on those who need that extra little amount, maybe even to take the bus to get to the health facility, which is a huge challenge for many people. So that's the logic. Knowledge, services, money equals a greater likelihood of practice. And again, if we go back to the Sustainable Development Goals, we cannot achieve them if people can't practice what's required to achieve them. So we see this as a very key feature of using AI. And so we started a year ago in this room. A year ago was the first day that I participated in the AI accelerator that led me with others to start ideating this idea. And since then, we've been starting to create a coalition of interested partners who are wanting to work with this. We've talked with many different partners. There's a couple of them here. Yeah, there's even one in the room. And what we are doing is we're really trying to just connect, learn, and start advancing this vision and apply it where it works the best. I see you're all looking very serious. I hope that the content is not as serious as you're looking. Yeah, but that's also okay if it's super serious. So on this journey so far, there's a few things we've learned. People generally do not trust AI-generated content, especially when it relates to health and more official practices such as parenting. We also know that parents of young children go to Google up to 6 times a day to ask Google what they should do. And we know that most parents, when they go online, are being met with misinformation about what is good parenting. We have seen and done research and seen that there are no platforms like the one we've just showcased here, Parent Pilot, in the market. There's no other platform that wants to do the same. There's hundreds of apps that are focusing on very specific topics, for very specific groups, for very specific locations, but none that are on everything parenting 24/7. And then we've learned that the value of these apps currently is really, really big. It's 640 million US dollars, which would be close to $1 billion Australian dollars. And that's projected to really grow within the next 4 years and almost more than double. So the money in this space is significant. Question is, how can we work together to get some of the money in for a parenting app for good? So here's some of the solutions we are working on. First is to partner with trusted providers of content and services in the parenting space. So, for example, the ethical marketplace we're talking about requires very strict protocols for what's ethical and what's not. We haven't figured this out yet, but we are working on it. We're talking about co-creating with users a very strong brand so that users are looking at Parent Pilot or whatever it's going to be called, because we haven't decided yet. It will be co-created with the users. But people need one space to get everything. People don't operating compartments and different websites and different services. So we want to have a very clear brand that is trusted. And then we want to use technologies such as you may have heard of. There's a technology called watermarking of AI content so that you can actually verify where is the content from and has it been changed. And there's increasing use of blockchain, which is a way of securing that content cannot be changed. And this is super important because we live in a world of increasing misinformation and distrust, especially in authorities, right? And we have to have trust that will not be broken. So technology exists to help us with that. We realize this requires a public and private partnership because the ambition and the funds needed and the funds needed to have sustainability in an initiative like this requires collaboration from both the public and the private sector. And we are seeing that there's a need for a for-profit business model that will allow us to earn and distribute money to users. If we can do this, we are more likely to bridge this gap, which this illustration shows, the action intention gap, which is maybe something you are aware of, maybe something you work with. And if you haven't worked with it before, just consider it that between what we know and what we do, there's a huge gap. Most of the time, what we know and what we do not align. And there's many reasons for why that is. But if we do these things in parenting, the likelihood that we can help people from knowing to doing increases dramatically. Okay, so that's my presentation part for now. Please feel free to take a photograph, or you can also connect with us after this using the email trails that are circulating. But Shane and I will be very happy to continue talking with you about this, and you might have things you'd like to share after the Q&A as well. And with that said, I will hand over to Shane. Thank you for listening. Shane will just share his part. I'll change the presentation of the Shane.
Thanks, Tomas. Excellent. And yes, thanks again, everyone, for coming. Welcome again. A bit of background around myself while I'm
Yes.